So, my dear Miriam, thank you so much for meeting me on Zoom tonight and today for you.
Thank you, Seb, for inviting me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have both been on such an interesting personal journey,
Yeah.
and I have always been really interested to know a little bit more about your journey. I know some of it, but I don't know much about the work that you have been doing recently
Mm-hmm.
on childhood trauma,
Yeah.
um, awareness and coaching.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what you do now and why.
Yes. So, as you know, I worked in many different contexts. I was in Switzerland, in Geneva, where we know each other very well. So I worked in banking, in the UN, and then recently in international development. So I left Switzerland for Canada 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time I was doing all this job hopping, I was so searching as well. I never felt that was what I was meant to do, that I really found something that I was passionate about. And so it was more like fulfilling what people were expecting of me.
Yes.
So it was more like people would say, oh, but yeah, you have a master degree. Oh, if you had a PhD in economics, it would land you a job in the UN. And then I started researching a PhD in economics.
Yeah.
But I was not interested in doing any PhD in economics, but it was just that I needed that external validation so much that I was ready to even study things I did not like,
Yeah.
work in fields I was not interested in, just to be like everyone and
Yeah.
look like I'm advancing, I'm making progress. So 2 years ago, I was pregnant. I was having difficulties at work with my boss. So I went to see this psychologist, and she told me to read this. So we discussed. She asked me if I had a past of childhood trauma. I
Mm.
said yes. All sorts, neglect, abandonment,
Yeah.
physical abuse, sexual abuse, yeah, really lots of stuff. And so she told me something that at that time was really, I think she really understood what was happening with me. She told me, your boss has understood how to hold you. She just needs to make you feel as if you're not working hard enough and you're giving it your all. And then she'll say, yeah, you're almost there, but you're not there yet. And it was really like that.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you have to set boundaries. She gave me like a 12 pager to read on childhood trauma. And she told me to read a book called Trauma and Recovery
Yeah.
by Judith Herman. It's like an old book from the 90s about trauma, like long-term trauma. I read that book. It was as if someone looked into my mind and wrote a book. It
Yeah.
was so validating. All the shame, all the guilt I carried all those years, not feeling like everyone, hiding my story from many people, not from you, of course, but from many people, because I was so ashamed. My story was not like other people's.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was explained from trauma, the way we are structured, the way we are people pleasing, the way we are not ourselves, the way we project this fake self in society,
Yeah.
but then we are ashamed of our real self that we keep under wraps because we think, oh, if people know who I am, no one will like me, everybody will run away from me, all of that. So it was, for me, it was fascinating. So I read that, and then I discovered this website called aces.com. It's adverse childhood experiences.com. It's it's a test, like 10 questions on adverse childhood experiences, and then you see if you experience childhood trauma or not. So I started reading about trauma, and then so trauma is actually just a wound,
Mm.
like an emotional wounding.
Yeah.
So they say there's big T trauma and small T trauma. The big T trauma is when um, it's like an accident, a disaster, something happens all of a sudden, someone's house burns down. And then the small T trauma is the drip one. It's the one you go through over years. It
Mm.
could be abuse all through your life, all through your childhood, that you were not loved properly, that you were not emotionally nurtured, or that, yeah. So it's like a long-term thing. So it follows you into adulthood. So it
And it
shows up in your,
sounds a lot more vicious
yeah,
because you're probably not aware that you're experiencing all that, right?
yeah, you know, yeah. And yeah, it's sometimes like what you didn't get, if you don't even know it's not normal, you don't even know you think it's your fault, that you
Yeah,
just feel, I always said it was my fault, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because there's the obvious abuse, you know, physical abuse, sexual, but there's also what is not obvious, what was not there.
Mm-hmm.
When the nurture was not there, the emotional availability of parents was not there, all of that, it still have the same effect as when you have the physical abuse, sexual abuse. It leaves the person with low self-esteem,
Yeah,
low self-worth,
yeah,
self-loathing, you know.
yeah,
You feel not, you feel as if everybody is better than you, everybody knows how to live life better than you, and then you're ashamed of it, and then you hide it, you know.
yeah,
It's a lot of suffering. It's a
yeah.
lot of suffering. Since I've discovered this, it has helped me so much shift my negative core beliefs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell myself um, that I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of anything good.
Were
But
you
this is,
aware of that pattern, or did something happen that made you realize what you were telling yourself, maybe even unconsciously?
I was always aware of how I spoke to myself.
Okay.
So when I was a teenager, it was like a dictator.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, if I failed a test, I would tell myself, "You're a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
How come you failed this test? You have no excuse. You have everything you need. How come you're failing?" And like really, wow, you know. With time, it became more subtle,
Yeah.
you know. Today, I think it's still there, but it's not as, you know, it shows up in guilt,
Yes.
in guilt, uh, not shame, guilt. If, for example, I want to, I don't know, I want to drink a bottle of wine. I don't drink a bottle of wine. Let's say I want to drink a glass of wine. I'll say, "Oh, but have you cleaned the house? Have you folded your laundry? Have you, you know, as if I have to deserve it."
Right.
So I'm noticing the patterns. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that I have found solutions for them, but like I'm noticing it. And then that core belief that I'm not worthy, that is shifting. That has shifted, you know. I know that every human being, when you're born, you're worthy. You don't gain your worth from doing anything. Because for me, for the longest time, it was, if you do something, you're worthy, right?
Yeah.
If you if you gain your master degree, you're worthy. And the funniest thing is that I never judge other people with that standard. I would never see a human being and say, "Oh, that woman, she didn't go to the university, she's not worthy." No, one day, like nothing. I see them as a human being. I would just focus on the connection and nothing else. But
Yeah.
for me, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to, yeah.
Yeah, you are your hardest judge. And I can really relate to that because I also come from a place where I feel that I did lots of things and I studied. I was in a career that I realized today was not what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it took me a lot of time to understand that. And
Mm.
a little bit similar to you, I was always looking for approval. So I was doing things to please other people and to feel loved, accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And was it easy, for example, people around you, your family, was it easy like facing them when you knew that this was not going to be your path? You would choose a path that is more faithful to what you are inside. Was it easy for them to accept, or were you at peace with the fact that,
I would say that no, it wasn't easy for them to accept at all. And today I still feel that my close family members don't really understand
mm-hmm,
what I went through and what I'm going through with this change I'm trying to make.
mm-hmm,
But it really took a lot of time, even for me, to understand that this was
mm-hmm,
not what I wanted to do,
yeah,
because I feel that even I wasn't aware. It was I was so dependent on
Mm.
other people's opinions
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I didn't even know I could have one myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That for me is the hardest. The hardest, maybe the biggest realization.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
really allow myself to say and to think, uh, this is what I want to do now, and that's the direction I'm going to take because I decided, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what other people think.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So we don't live with what this and this person think of us. It's with ourselves. It's we when we are in our bedroom, it's with our emotions. What other people think of us, it will not comfort us if we don't think good things about ourselves. So yeah. So it's really like gaining the courage to stand in our own path and to continue to take the path we want to take in life. But it was very complicated. But I'm so happy to be at this point, where I can see all the things I did, and then now I'm like, okay, this is the path I want to take.